Cobb.
Madam Chairman and comrades, I want to introduce this subject briefly. It's a very important one, and these motions that are on the agenda all form part of one whole. You can't detach the question of the hydrogen bomb or the matter of national service from the general question of defense. Being will come down to the question of agreement for disarmament. That depends, after all. Our subsidiary points on this, which I don't think, first one, is of vast importance. There are some who hold that it's very wicked for us to produce a hydrogen bomb, but as far as I can see, all right if we procure it from somebody else. Well, that's a very minor point. We have to face the fact that these things are in existence in the world. We want to get agreement, first of all, between those powers that possess the hydrogen bomb or have the power to make it. But we believe this whole matter has got also to come before the United Nations. We've got to get back and make a reality of that statement we quoted so often between the wars, that there should be a renunciation of war as an instrument of policy. Now I believe you've then got to consider the position of what they call conventional forces. You see, when you are in government, you always have to consider what are your commitments. Now, the commitments that faced us have been very largely reduced. There has been the removal of troops from Egypt. There has been reduction in the troops in Korea. And there has been developments with regard to Europe. Now, it's sometimes suggested the advantage of that would be that you can then have troops ready to send overseas, what they call fighting reserve. Therefore, we press for a reduction, as we believe there can be a reduction in the term of national service, but we believe that the whole of this question of national service and the composition of our armed forces requires very, very close and new examination in the light of changed circumstances.
If we are to be the country that doesn't do anything in this matter, it will mean that in our diplomacy, and possibly at times of stress and strain, we would be at the mercy of foreign powers who are in possession of these things. The best solution is international agreement. After international discussion, which had been taking place, by the way, but the agreement has not been reached. That is the best way out of it. And merely by particular countries stopping it and other countries not, you are not only doing something which is unfair to your own country, but you are in a way increasing the temptation of war or the temptation of individual countries to dictate to others because of their possession of this weapon. And therefore we think that it would be unwise for the conference to pass this resolution, this motion. Nor do we want to go out of our way to declare an excessive independence of the Soviet Union. If the Soviet Union pursues a policy which we think is right, then we should not be afraid to support proposals which are made by the Soviet Union. And having declared what in principle seems to me to go on a middle-of-the-road course between these two great powers, which really is very near the balance of power idea, the next paragraph goes on to condemn the balance of power. Now, I've dealt with the paragraph A in dealing with the United States. If that applies to the United States, it must surely equally apply to the Soviet Union and China. But they are not mentioned. In that paragraph C really asks us to do that the opinion of to carry composite number, though perhaps the wording might have been Irene White, government supporters in the House of Commons and the opposition and the delegates to this conference, that there has not been the inquiry into this matter which the opposition in Parliament has persistently demanded. The essence of parliamentary debate in a good sense is and ought to be that we know what we're talking about. And if we had had that independent inquiry, giving us the facts within the reasonable limitations of security, then we would all be better informed about this matter. In the period, reasonable contribution to the collective defense of the world, not only for the preservation of the peace, which is the whole purpose, but also for the protection of liberty. And never let us forget that in our own country, as a whole, we've got great traditions of liberty of which we can be proud and which none of us ought to be willing to lose. We felt that in the war against Hitlerism. We must feel it equally in resistance to efforts by other totalitarian regimes to upset our democracy, our freedom, and our liberty. And so we believe that we are up against a world tragedy, that it is a wicked thing that over the world, in our own country, in the continent of Europe, among the masses of the Soviet Union and behind the Iron Curtain, in the United States, that this vast expenditure, vast energy on armaments should be going on. And we would beg of all the peoples and all the governments of the world to realize that it is a mad situation, that the solution is simple. It is the genuine application of the principles and the covenant of the United Nations. Let them get on with it, and let Britain take the lead in all possible directions to this great and glorious end.